They called our generation the missing millions. Missing not because we went anywhere. There's nowhere left to go. Nowhere except the OASIS. It's the only place that feels like I mean anything.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Hello, all you gigalos. Welcome to Garbage In, Garbage Out. I'm your host, Kelton, and I'm joined, as always, by my amazing co-host, Grift. How's it going, buddy?
Up top, I like to give a shout out to the Taliban. I know you guys are really busy right now, but thank you so much for coming through to my housewarming party last night. It was really, really great to see the gang roll that deep. So shout out, the Taliban, everyone else who made it out last night. It was a great time.
And actually, as it turns out, you just got robbed. It was a bunch of people in ski masks, but after about 4 drinks, all the outfits kind of merged together into very problematic ways. So
yeah, and then it inspired a Twitter post where I make broad generalizations based on random personal experiences.
I saw something online about the Taliban that was like, I can't care about what's going on in Afghanistan. I had an alcoholic father who would yell and scream every time the door shut and locked. It was my personal Afghanistan.
They took it there.
They did. I guess we should also probably introduce our guest this week. It's the sweaty Mamba from Letterboxd. How is it going, sir?
Hello. It's going well. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. I mean, this week we are going to be covering Ready Player One. It's a movie I think a lot of people are familiar with. The basic premise is that when the creator of a popular video game system dies, a virtual contest is created to compete for his fortune. I wish the movie was as succinct as that synopsis would make things seem, but we each have our own slight little struggles kind of along the way here. Thank you so much for joining us with this movie.
Happy to be here.
Well, let's get our basic thoughts going on. Grift, what did you think about this?
I remember a couple of years after the original novel came out, it sort of was in the zeitgeist, and it was the sort of thing that people were talking about. So like, I'll pick up this light sci-fi book. Sounds fun to read. Oh, this is some of the worst writing I've ever encountered. Literally just a fucking like Jenga tower of pop culture references just thrown at you like a fucking fire hose.
I was about to say Jenga. Come on, that's giving it a little too much credit. There's some strategy involved in Jenga, especially at the end. Come on now.
This is like a failed Tetris stack, like one where you're not paying attention, just builds up and you immediately die.
It's like a toddler trying to attempt skee ball for the first time, just hurling it directly.
A Tetris stack with zero symmetry to it.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's the content that this thing is working with, and the fact that they gave it to Steven Spielberg and with a massive fucking budget and tried to make it into this big event movie, considering just like, I mean, particularly coming off of watching Space Jam 2. Like, I
was wondering if you would bring Space Jam.
Dude,
up.
of course. Space Jam 2 fucking triggered me, and I have not been untriggered. Like, I'm still activated, and this was just like, watching this was just like doubling down on that.
I wondered if you would say that.
Yeah. Because Kelton, I assume all of the pop culture ephemera that is just referenced ad nauseum in this movie. You can find all of those on the HBO Max streaming platform, correct?
Yes, you can. It's amazing that this virtual world where anything is possible, as long as it's a property owned by Warner Brothers, is readily available for anyone to take a look at. It's quite a film. I mean, it was one of those things of where, as a person who really hates reference humor, this was my Afghanistan, I guess.
Oh my God. So fellas, I mean, I was wondering, compared to Your podcast on Space Jam 2 convinced me to never check it out. But as this movie got worse and worse, I just was imagining like, yeah, how did this compare to Space Jam? Like, which one was worse?
Oh, Space Jam for sure, because at least in this one, there's like a CGI gray muddied mess final act of a battle sequence that takes place, which is miserable in its own way. But what's more miserable is all of those characters just standing around idly by while a basketball game takes place right in the middle. And that's apparently the alternative here.
Yeah, so. I'm rolling deep with my droogies. We got courtside seats.
Not even Spielberg would put the droogs in Ready Player One. That's the thing. Like, they don't appear in Ready Player One with the video game characters, but they do in Space Jam 2, a movie for children.
Yeah, no, this movie just prefers to have the sort of all-knowing Willy Wonka figure imagine himself as Jack Nicholson in the black and white photo at the end of The Shining. Like, that's like that's how that guy would he would love to trade places with Jack Nicholson's character in that. Like, that's just
he's the main character of every movie. Come on, Grift.
Of course,
I don't know. For me, at least, as stupid as I felt like a lot of aspects of the technology and the world building that existed within the movie was, I thought it was a weird juxtaposition, because the movie really does kind of tell a story of a country that is in this in the middle of this turmoil. It's the future where we've all kind of ignored a lot of the societal problems that are structurally ingrained with the way that things operate, and so we as a people have all retreated back in to this world of regurgitated pop culture as the real world continues this slow and getting faster and faster slide into just a complete collapse, both environmental and societal. And the only thing that triggers a sense of activism in any way is when the entertainment providers start putting up paywalls for content. And so then that creates this massive, almost social justice-esque kind of movement to take place. And I mean, this, for me at least, I was thinking like, oh, so this is how cinema officially dies, like with nerds doing one big circle jerk. I'm glad. Yeah. Okay.
People are literally living in the pod, eating the bugs, and staying in the OASIS.
They have pods within the pods, Grift.
Yeah.
They have preferential pods, which are double wide trailers that they just stack onto rebar fences, basically. And then they have like the evil pods, where a company is just allowed to have indentured Amazon servants that live in giant eggs or whatever, you know. It is weird, because it's obviously a small little prison. I'm sure it's very bad, but it also looks a lot like a cryogenic chamber that like LeBron sleeps in to preserve his youth so he can get ready for the next season. So it was, again, a Space Jam feeling to me.
I believe the correct nomenclature is Amazon indentured servants.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. It's just funny that the criticism that Spielberg has of like, oh man, can you imagine this company that is trying to fill everything with ad space? Anyway, at the opening shot of this movie, I'm going to have Pizza Hut deliver via drone some food off to people.
It's so fucking ghoulish, because you can obviously see that this is a very unequal world. Like, this is full like neoliberal anarcho-capitalism like run amok, because you have both like the inequality in the difference between like the elite people running this company and these the fastest growing city in the US is like a stacked trailer park in Columbus, Ohio.
I gotta do a little bit of pushback, Grift, on the idea, because there certainly is systemic inequality that takes place, but the rich people, we need to keep in mind, all of these people look and dress like they're in fucking Office Space. They're not like the lavish rich people, because all of their actual resources are getting funneled back into this fucking game, because that's the only thing that matters.
Yeah. and the game is fundamentally unequal too, because if you have more money within the game, you can buy more stuff, and then you have a chance to compete for the ultimate prizes. And it's like you see the same cycles.
But that's
being
the way the game is originally built.
Yeah,
we can't throw ads into this experience. That would be too negative.
That's a bridge too far. But like your note about how the elite corporate villains of this just dress like just suits. It's basically like the sort of DNA of the sort of like 80s Spielberg movie, where a lot of those movies like. And also like within the nostalgia that's referenced within this movie, like a lot of those had anti-corporate messages. Like that was sort of a boogeyman at the time that the media products would sort of play off of. So I thought it was both the fact that they were using that villain trope combined with just the fact that you're focusing on this pop culture social justice game, when this world, like this material world that they live in, is deeply fucked, and everybody's basically completely given up on changing that. So all we have left is to fight about the amount of paywalling, and if you're making like genuine cultural references, because you actually have a real appreciation for the source material.
70s and 80s cultural references. Let's be clear here. Nothing. There's no reference to like a politician from 2035 or whatever. It's all stuff that's talking about the last Starfighter and all this other fucking bullshit. I mean, I think the movie is fundamentally broken in a weird way, but one of the things I really wanted to highlight from the beginning is that this is a Steven Spielberg movie. And like Steven Spielberg,
somehow,
while this era of pop culture was being so vibrant, the 70s, 80s pop culture was taking place, he was already middle-aged. He has no childhood nostalgia for this kind of shit. Like he had already made Jaws. He was working on Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He was the tastemaker for these consumers that were eating all of the shit up. So when he is making something, he is not looking at it from a sense of starry-eyed fondness and nostalgia. He's thinking about like, oh, yeah, that was George who was running second unit when that scene was shot. I remember we had to do that on the fourth take because the boom mic was showing, blah, blah, blah. Like that's how his mind has processed these pieces of art, because he's been there for the whole process of it.
So it's sort of like an act of like self-canonization, like, because he's making, he's like pretty much like deifying these cultural touchstones that he had a hand in, but then he's the one making the piece, another piece of media that's done in this same style, big budget action movie, with the classic same story and music and beats to it, but it's all about appreciating the things that he played a hand in. It's just how many levels of like recursive self-circle jerk can we go here? Well,
yeah, I thought that was a great point about the nostalgia time period being off, and it reminded me to prepare for this, I revisited some of the early Spielberg canon, and one of my most favorite rewatches was the first Indiana Jones, and I learned something very interesting about that on this rewatch, that Indiana Jones is Spielberg's sort of nostalgia project for the 1930s, like serial films that he and George Lucas grew up on. So that's what he loves. He wants to make more movies like that. He wants to, and now that he's older, he wants to make movies like The fucking Post, and whatever other Tom Hanks starring vehicle he can get. And the only note I wanted to add about this movie is that in a couple of previous episodes we've talked about how there's a director and then there's a second unit. Well, the way that this movie seemed to work specifically was, of course, Spielberg was the main director, and he was the one who shot a lot of the scenes that existed in the real world. However, the virtual world, the OASIS, that was all done by Industrial Light and Magic, and it has an entirely different cinematography style to it, and the inclusion of various other aspects
and pop culture references, all of that was done in rendering. In fact, he got done filming the actual movie of Ready Player One, then filmed the post, did all of the post-production for the post in the time that then it took Ready Player One to render. And Spielberg's main note on the Oasis world was actually trying to omit many references to his own work because he felt like it was too circle jerky. So they were having to replace things.
That's so interesting you say that, because I was wondering, like, why wouldn't Spielberg want, like, there's the Tyrannosaurus Rex, of course, from Jurassic Park that we see, but other than that, there's not like a whole lot of standouts from his great hits. And I was wondering, and so I was researching it, and I learned that, I don't know if I haven't seen this, but his early flop from like the 70s, 1941, apparently.
Underrated. I actually really enjoy that movie.
Okay,
yeah.
I would like to see it, but what I read was that movie pokes fun at Jaws and his first film Duel, and that because 1941 was so poorly received, he with this movie did not want to revisit any of his old movies because he just couldn't. It seems like he's still shook from 1941's reception.
And he really pulled his punches on any sort of cheeky reference to how ridiculous the whole endeavor is. Like if this had been like a self-aware winking at the camera tone, I think it could have. Yeah. I think it could have been had a lot better message, but it's just completely blinkered and turns into like a treating respect for pop culture references on the level of like social justice activism.
Yeah, it feels incredibly neutered, because the other direction that I felt like in several scenes that this movie wanted to go in was much in the same way that Spielberg did Indiana Jones, and then he did Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which was a poor man's version of the older movies. I felt like he really wanted to try and deliver a similar message to Minority Report in a lot of ways, talking about the dangers of technology, and it's a cautionary tale in a lot of aspects. Only he's too old and he's a grandpa. And, he like the ending message of like, well, hey, everyone, just go out and touch grass 2 times a week. Like, fuck you. Come on,
Tuesdays
guys.
and Thursdays, folks.
Tuesdays and Thursdays. You heard it here. That's the new weekend.
That's the new weekend.
It's recreating the same patterns. Like, you have it's assumed that you're going to spend 5 days in the Oasis because that's your work, and like that's and then.
But you don't get 2 days off. Fuck you. No. It's like the restaurant industry.
Yeah,
you gotta work Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm sorry, but we can give you Tuesday and Thursday off.
Grift, on your note of sort of like, it would have been interesting if Spielberg had done more to take this in a different direction with some self-referential humor or like breaking the fourth wall. It reminded me this movie is full of cringe, but there's this one terrible moment when I believe it's around halfway through when Artemis is kidnapped and taken to be an indentured servant to pay off her family's debt or whatever.
Her dead father suicide. And they're like, no, you still got to pay.
You still got to pay off his debt.
Your WoW tokens or whatever.
Do you guys recall when the kidnapper does this like breaking the fourth wall moment and like looks directly into the camera, and like it just falls so fucking flat? Like it seems like they're trying to do some sort of like self-reflexive type of humor, but it was
actually when she looked at the camera for me that I went, holy shit, that's Olivia Cook. That's the female lead in Sound of Metal. Oh, good for her.
Is that right?
Yeah, I'm glad she got better things going on then. So sorry, I got distracted by that because that was the first time.
No, and I know that was
the horrible disfigurement that she has in this movie. Completely distracted me. What a hideous thing. I'm amazed that this didn't get an Oscar nom for best makeup. Just how they did that monstrosity.
Yeah, we need a we need a new Oscar category, best makeup special effects.
just for this, it's one of those posthumous awards, I think, that we can.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they have like fully digital influencers now, so it's not far off, I imagine.
I know at some point I've experimented with the idea of, as we review more and more garbage movies, to do a spoof of the Cannes Film Festival, but calling it the Trash Can Film Festival.
I like it. I like it.
But that might be a category that we have to explore then, Grift. So we'll make a note of that
you
for
would
the
have
future.
You would have to figure out a way to like brand yourself separately from the Razzies. Is that what they're called?
Yeah. How is it going to be different? We won't let pedophiles accept the awards. Okay. We will take a strong stance against that. The Razzies has been silent for too long.
Cancel the Razzies.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention just before we dive into the actual recap here, talking about the brain trust that helped make this movie, was that the cinematography was done by a collaborator with Spielberg. It's a guy named Janusz Kaminski, who had done like Saving Private Ryan and Schindler's List, among other classic Spielberg movies. And that is very apparent, again, in the real world scenes with how it's shot. But it really makes the special effects, the virtual world and the spinning camera angles and everything else seem much more jarring than you can tell that it doesn't have that same style. And the reason for that, just in case anyone is wondering at home, yes, I did look up and see who the second director was. And do you want to know what the second director did, Grift? Do you want to know, Mamba? Want to guess what some of the movies that the second unit director is responsible for?
I'm scared.
All right. Rogue One, Solo, A Star Wars Story, Doctor Strange, and Captain America Civil War.
Okay. Yep.
I wonder why that huge CGI battle at the end looked like a knockoff like Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, it's pretty depressing, I think, but it does kind of specialize, or not specialize. It does kind of highlight again some of the differences here between the cinematic stylings.
Do you guys remember the 2007 adaptation of Beowulf that was like half CGI?
It had
some of
Roy Winston, I think,
Ray
and then it was.
Angelina Jolie,
of
all
course,
gold up,
as Grendel's mother,
all gold, everything.
Yeah, just what you were saying about the shocking and tragic differences in style really reminded me of that movie. I haven't seen it since it came out. I don't know how
you're
it
a better
would hold
man
up,
for it.
Probably.
Getting back into the early English lit lore.
This is true, Griff. This is true.
We can start doing. I don't know. I'm sure if we look up, I bet you there's like a Beowulf miniseries that's being filmed. That's like dark and gritty and set in the modern world.
Right.
Right. I'm guessing. Like Grendel is probably like a computer virus. Something. I don't know. I'm pitching ideas out. If they seem like shitty ideas, just give them to Warner Bros. Because they'll for sure greenlight it. So,
or if you got A24 and David Lowery behind it, could go in the other direction. A24's
Beowulf would fucking rip.
Would rip.
Oh, that would slap.
It would just be a bunch of Germans and then like one slightly overly blonde guy. They're like, that dude's Grendel. Yeah, fuck that guy.
There would definitely be some sort of like incest storyline with like Grendel and Grendel's mother. Like,
I was just gonna say
there's a lot of Oedipal male-female dynamics at play there. For sure.
Jesus.
That A24 would have some field day with.
Wasn't there a book called like I Am Grendel or something? Am I misremembering that? It was like in the early aughts whatever.
I could be convinced.
We are talking and pitching much better movies than the one that we currently experience. So I think it's probably time to dive into what this movie is actually all about. So if we are ready, let's set our imaginations off. Let's journey into the distant world of 2045, where due to a bunch of just different shit, a lot of Earth cities have become slums, and so everyone retreats into this virtual world that we've referenced called the OASIS. And it lets you be anything you want, and it's a very cool, very slick world, whereas the real world is shot on film and is slightly grainy. This is all digitized, so it's very smooth, and it kind of helps highlight the differences as things go on throughout. Would y'all want to participate in the OASIS if given the chance?
Oh, I mean, if it was there, I know it would be a slippery slope, because then you can set up so many pop-up shops there.
You can.
Like, I would never
and they would
leave.
be real. They would be real shops, Grift.
I would be selling like NFT merch to all the Oasis users, and then I get canceled for destroying the environment. Yes.
How could you? Meanwhile, IOI has just bulldozed the new Amazon that is in Antarctica,
endangering the world of Oasis.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the OASIS was made by this guy named Halliday, and when he died, he announced a contest where there are these Easter eggs, or there's an Easter egg that's hidden in the game, and you need 3 keys to try and find it. And the winner of this Easter egg hunt would receive full ownership and control of Oasis, which is like a multi-trillion-dollar company at this point in time. And we find out later that Halliday's intended message is that the pop culture that exists from his childhood and that he put into the game might be cool, but it's really the outside world that's valuable. And I had an immediate fix to this movie, and I wanted to get y'all's feedback on this, because like from the get-go, I had an idea that I think could potentially fix the world. How about you ditch, as Griff mentioned, the Willy Wonka shtick and nonsense set inside the Oasis, and actually hide the keys in the real world at the specific locations that inspired the classic pop culture bits. So, for example, instead of going into the virtual world of The Shining, you could go into the hotel that inspired The Shining.
The actual fucking Overlook Hotel that exists in Meat Space. That's a real fucking place.
Yeah,
it's
and you could have booby traps and things in there. You can do the exact same set piece sequences, but it can just be set in the real world instead of like, oh my God, oh, everything's happening all at once virtually. Oh, let me take off my helmet here. Everything's fine. Great.
Pokemon Go touch grass.
Seriously.
It just seemed like that would be a better movie, at least in my opinion.
Well, it would make the message feel more congruent with the film's actual content.
Yeah, and I also think that it would be something probably more in line with what Spielberg probably would feel more comfortable with. Like, I know that he did several key differences between this movie and the book, most notably starting in the second act, where he really kind of had the focus be on the real characters as they're bouncing around in the real world, whereas the book is pretty much all about Percival and our main character, Wade Watts. I'm sorry.
I also... I don't know if you guys looked into this, but I read that the book, instead of The Shining being the film of feature, that they go into Blade Runner, which
that makes sense.
A lot more sense.
That makes way more sense. I mean,
yeah,
that's one of like this Oasis world, this concept of this, fully realized second life, basically. Like, that's stolen from. I mean, it's just a tragedy that we don't get a Neuromancer movie or a Snow Crash movie, or just the better properties that this entire concept is used to deliver this ghoulish message. Like, just watching this made me sad. We can't get an actually, well-funded adaptation of much better properties that this book originally ripped off itself.
And it's not because studios are smart. If studios were smart, they would realize, oh, hey, so the past like 4 movies that we've released all had like $200 million budgets, so they all failed to crack 50 million at the box office. Maybe we should, for at least a year and a half or 2 years, pump the brakes and start bringing back mid-budget $35 million projects. And then, you know, you could possibly explore the creative boundaries with slightly lesser known stories and cultivate a new sense of IP during this time. But no, they're not going to take that message at all. We're going to get like Conjuring 5. It's going to fucking suck. And
you know what I also saw that's I'm still just shook over is that Spielberg tried to he wanted to reference Close Encounters, but he couldn't get the rights to his own movie.
That's
from
goddamn
Columbia
right.
Pictures. and that was the same problem with Blade Runner. Couldn't get the rights, and then I guess he and Kubrick were buddies, and The Shining made more sense. But
Yep. It is amazing how that goes. So
yeah, this motherfucker don't even own his own masters.
Go ahead.
Oh well, I'm slightly different topic here, but on your note of how to make the movie better, I was thinking like I do like your idea of running this in the real world, and I could totally picture the shots of Colorado and the Overlook Hotel, but if he was going to explore his own movies, I know 1941 is a sour note in Spielberg's past, but I just feel like this could have worked so much better if all the references were to things like Jaws, to Indiana Jones, to E.T., and like more emotion would be involved with the movie, like that nostalgia would be there. It seemed like Spielberg might actually,
it was
like
set
get something
entirely in like modern era Spielberg, where they're like, oh wow, the plot of Farmland where Lincoln was filmed. This is amazing.
This is amazing.
That's the era of Spielberg that really took off in this world, not
Or
like the fun 80s thing.
Or the Bridge of Spies. Yeah.
Oh fuck yeah! This is the bridge from Bridge of Spies.
Dare I say Munich? Munich?
Oh, Munich would actually be pretty dope.
That would be so dark.
How do we have to get this key? Well, there's 6 Olympic athletes.
We have to take out. Or you know what I could totally see though on that note is Catch Me If You Can. They could sort of run along with the whole plot and look for keys along the way.
Yeah, I know that we're basically making. I mean, we're making a much better movie, but unfortunately, it's not Ready Player One. But I also think that I don't want to speak for all of us, but we are on the younger side, just like Spielberg is on the older side for this '80s nostalgia. Like the '70s and '80s nostalgia is like, oh, this is like what our parents were into. And like this is like what our parents were like. Whoa, this is blowing my mind. Whereas like in our heads, Drew Barrymore has always been like a fully grown woman, and not like the adorable little child from E.T.
Yeah. Like we had talked about that disconnect when we did the Fear Street episode, where like those were adapting properties written in like the late '80s, early '90s. So it was like a Gen X audience, but it's being produced now as like a media property made for and marketed to like Zoomers. And like this came out in like 2016, 2017, something?
2018, actually.
Oh, 2018. Okay.
Yeah, so it was filmed in 2016, but again, the rendering took so long.
Yeah. So and it's like, obviously it's playing on some certain, Gen Z tropes about the disconnect between your online persona and your actual meat space body and stuff, but it completely doesn't go into those because this is a movie made for the people who would be nostalgic about the properties that it references. Like
this is older millennial type shit.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah. Like no younger kid is going to have an emotional attraction to like The Shining. Like they don't like, that's not something that's like deeply embedded in their sort of pop culture sensibilities.
Their psyche.
I'm gonna go on a limb here, Grift. I would say that we're on the fringe group for the fucking Iron Giant. Like the Iron Giant was for our demographic, but I think that's like even kind of a reach. Like anything that's older than the Iron Giant is probably, you know, something that like we might have secondhand nostalgia for, or like, oh, I remember watching that on my TV with my parents, or what have you.
I love and then they had the Iron Giant do the Terminator thumb. When it like Terminator 2 like it's just completely random mashup of references, makes no sense that they're just throwing shit at the wall because they can. For something that one of the very, very deep messages of this thing is that reverence and respect for like the pop culture signifiers that shaped who you are and your media consumption and like your sense of self. Like that's very important. Like, and being true to that is very important. So let's just throw together as many random references and combine them in as many ways as we can. That's how we show true respect to like these classic nostalgic properties. Like
yes, by treating products like it is not just art, but it is part of your personality. Like it's part of who you are. It just
I just wanted to mention you from what I gathered from your show, you guys often talk about algorithm generated content. And oh boy, that that was the random cultural mismatches. Even I would say, I don't know about you, but as soon as I heard "Jump," the Van Halen song open,
what the fuck?
I knew I had a bad feeling about this.
I got scared.
I got scared, and then
we're not gonna take it. Yeah,
the Hall and Oates song that ends it.
Oh my God, yes.
It's just like an algorithm picked random hits from the 80s, you know, threw them into the soundtrack, and it's a shame because the soundtrack is by Alvin Silvestri, is I believe how you pronounce it, who did Back to the Future. And yes. I mean, I think maybe this would have felt more Spielberg if John Williams could have done the score, but oh my God.
He had a scheduling conflict because
is that what happened?
I think he was working on the post. Legitimately.
Oh my God.
But no, that should let us know where our priorities are. Spielberg was like, okay, so I can get John Williams on either The Post or Ready Player One. All right. We're doing The Post, baby.
Sold.
They have a true poster soul.
Well,
Meryl Streep deserves the finest score. No,
sure, yeah. You know, let's dive into the Meryl Streepazance, and you know, I think she's a fine actor, and I think that that's it. I think that's all.
That's the book on Meryl Streep thing.
Yeah, that's all we gotta say. That's all we gotta say.
That's all she wrote.
Make some room for Glenn Close. How can that be my hot take? Like, enough Meryl Streep. We have moved past the need for Meryl Streep.
Oh, and to be clear, I didn't mean that as necessarily a pro Meryl Streep comment. I just wanted to mention it.
On the record, I am Meryl Streep agnostic.
On the record, I am not a Streep truther. Yeah. By any means.
I would love it, by the way, like if Meryl Streep, we found out that like she scrolled through hateful Twitter comments and, you know, various things the same way that like Kevin Durant or Kanye does.
Oh yeah,
just like using it for fuel
on a burner account.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh man,
going to bat for her performances. Like, I think she killed it as that random English Butler movie where she played an Irish person. Yeah.
Well, we already know that studios like run very obvious like bot alt accounts to hype up certain media products. Like whenever you see like some account that has like 0 followers doing a post about Space Jam 2 that went viral. Like, you know something's up.
Something is up.
And it's always something like, my 3-year-old loved this movie. I would say it's great for all the kid. And, you know, slightly imperfect grammar. It's a joy.
Did you guys see that Spielberg says that this is the 3rd hardest movie that he's ever made?
I believe it.
Right after, I don't know the other. I know Saving Private Ryan is one of them, but
Jaws has to be the other.
Jaws has to be the other one. Right, right. But oh my God,
Spielberg wanted to quit making movies because of Jaws.
He really put his blood, sweat, and tears into Ready Player One,
which is really, I think, more indicative of anything else. Of like, this is him trying. Let's this isn't him selling out. This is him trying his best to come up with like a serious, soulful message from pop culture bullshit nonsense. And if it doesn't work, that just means that he's lost his touch. And that's okay. Again, he's a grandpa. It's fine. Go make the BFG 2 or whatever fucking thing you want to do instead, Spielberg. It's okay. Because I mean, like, I know Grift, you talked about the company, IOI is what it's called, Innovative Online Industries.
Wow.
The company, the bad guys in this movie are some of just the lamest, most one note things. The bad guy is just basically an evil nerd, is kind of like what we're supposed to think, but also like maybe he actually isn't in it for the love of the game, but he's like a soulless corporate goon, but he still has a password that's B055MAN69.
I forgot about that.
He was like the type of guy. So notice how his in-game is in OASIS avatar was basically Giga Chad. That's the sort of like just basic corporate villain we're dealing with here. He has some probably surface level knowledge of it because he's in the industry, but like when that scene where he was having to be fed all of the pop culture references from his team in the back, they like the fact that they have like
from the Sixers
people who study like it is an entire job to study like a dead person's like pop culture reference like mind archive. It's insanity.
You're right, because it's what the logical, I guess, conclusion of there being so many cottage industries surrounding pop culture would become, is that these are basically Trivia Pursuit nerds just fucking going to the nth degree on everything and then trying to feed people the right answers for things.
Now, as an avid Letterboxd user, I must say I appreciate the fact that James Holiday kept track of every single movie that he ever watched.
Oh God, fuck that!
Yeah. Proto Letterboxd, we gotta respect it.
Yeah, the Shining, his 11th favorite horror movie. What? Also, why 11th? What are the 10 other movies?
What are the 10 other?
Guys, the reason that Letterboxd hasn't launched a DM feature is that they're too busy working on their like artificial reality. Like
I'm waiting. I'm waiting.
You know what?
It's going to happen.
I could see it, Grift.
I mean, before I forget, I feel like we have to talk about like the main character of this movie, Wade Watts, right? Wade Owen Watts. That's right. That's right. The 17-year-old, the teen prodigy, the special boy. You see,
whose initials spell wow.
Yeah, a game that
talk about that.
That was real popular, and WoW is definitely still popular.
Wow.
How great! I mean, like you couldn't have at least Owen Wilson play his alcoholic, abusive stepdad just to get in a quick wow. Anyway,
a little bit of character depth.
His home situation was just so surface level. and then doesn't
what wasn't surface level?
I mean, just on a for real. And then
I needed a 15-minute tangent into like the marital issues between his aunt and the abusive partner. Yeah.
Like, well, that was his aunt, right? That you said he was living with. Like, and
before she got drunk.
She just got blown up, and he doesn't care. No one cares. There's no emotional register to any of this stuff.
Just off.
Yeah.
I mean,
keep the movie rolling, folks.
Yeah.
He's now rolling with a cool cast of characters. He's a member of the Resistance, and they're driving around in a USPS truck. Because isn't that just a delightful bit of boomer brain?
Brain. Yep.
Society is collapsing, but the postal service is still operational in some capacity.
Here. And then the cops are still here to come lock the bad guy up at the end.
Oh my fucking god!
What the yeah. I don't know if we want to jump ahead that far, but just
no, it's fine. We absolutely can. Yeah, because
the fucking ridiculousness of this burned out shell of a society where people are living in trailers stacked 100 levels high, and then just to take out the final corporate bad guy who just has a gun in front of a crowd of people, just the cops roll up, and it's literally looks like just a contemporary local police force. Yeah. Just
it looked like campus police even.
Less militarized than what's going on right now.
Hey, AOC is doing great work in the future as a senator in New York. Okay, come on.
Paul Blart Mall Cop, anyone?
Yeah.
See, those are the references that they could have been making to appeal to us. Yeah. But no, I mean, again, the plot of this movie is painfully bland, and so I don't think we need to give it any sort of gravitas by running into it. It's like, oh, there's an evil company. Here's our young protagonist. He meets a wacky group of characters. They're able to fucking solve puzzles. One of the puzzles, though, was the fact that he figured out how to drive backwards, and in 5 fucking years, not a single gamer.
Nobody figured this shit out.
Yeah.
That would have been the first week. Someone would have let their 3-year-old fucking try to play. They would have fucked up and then found it out.
Good point.
Yeah,
it's just
unreal. And I mean,
this is a $1 trillion game. Everyone, billions of people are playing this game for 5 years. And he is the first one to think, hey, you know how Kong kills everyone? Well, what if I just went backwards? Whoa. Oh, this is cool.
There's your Owen Wilson. Wow.
I'm such a special boy. I can't wait for Artemis to now suck my dick. Great.
Yeah.
This is cool.
I mean, on the topic of surface level, can we talk about how this movie raised the point of you're developing this emotional attraction to this thing that's just an avatar. You don't know what their meat space, sex, gender, body is like. And then it just turns out that the hot girl in the game who's into him turns out to be a hot girl in real life.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
It's
who also lives in Columbus.
You could have you could have done you could have done so much subversion with that. I mean, this movie has no interest in doing that, but it's
otherwise
just
we get the fucking Black Mirror episode where it's the two bros in the Mortal Kombat game.
I thought of that while watching this. And also, I beg to differ on the subversion because they totally nail it when Lena Waithe ends up being the H character. Mind blowing.
I'm being
I'm being sarcastic.
We're not even going to explore the example of why a black lesbian person might not want to present as black or lesbian in an online space with gamer culture. Weird. We're going to gloss right on over that. We're going to
gloss right over it. And it's too bad because Lena Waithe is a great actress.
I mean, there are a lot of great actors in this movie, and there's also Ty Sheridan,
Sheridan.
Yeah, fucking Cyclops from the X-Men movies.
Also, I just realized that the guy who plays the main corporate villain in this is the guy who gets his neck snapped by Bane in Dark Knight Rises.
Oh, is that right?
Do you feel in charge?
I know he was in the Netflix show Bloodline. That's all I recognized him from.
I mean, he was the bad guy in Rogue One. He was the sheriff of Nottingham in that awful Robin Hood movie. Like, there's a lot of like other things that he's kind of popped up in from like here and there, basically. But the most important thing is like he knows that he can play a bad guy. Like I don't think has ever tried to be like a leading man in any way. And from an acting perspective, like the second there was a casting call for need a geeky, kind of nerdy, evil CEO, he's like, well, all right, time to do the old razzle dazzle in the casting auditions. Let's go fucking get this for the old Ben Dog.
And he's great in Bloodline. I mean, you know, another actor with the chops, just not a great script or content, however you want to put it, to work with.
He is incredibly rich, and he's also Australian, so I'm having only like the smallest bit of pity for him.
Right.
It's like, again, he like, especially with his acting style. I also know like he's already older for an actor, but like he can probably be getting these roles well into like his mid 70s. You know, like that specific character type. So. It's nice. Grift, I did have a thought, though, talking about, like, the police are showing up. Why would they be arresting this CEO? Well, it's because police are the servants of capital, as we know, Grift. And Wade, after he wins the contest and he gets the Easter egg, becomes head of a $1 trillion company. Yeah. And so they serve him. And so then when the trillionaire wants to get rid of the billionaires, that's actually why they're trying to exact justice. Right.
Yeah, the way to overthrow our corporate overlords is to put each company in the hands of 5 gamers. Yeah, that's gonna solve all our problems.
The high five.
Yeah, the high five.
Yeah. Please respect the brilliant name.
Yeah.
I really, again, I know off mic we were talking a little bit about the sequel Ready Player 2. There is a group in the sequel book called the Low Five. And
God damn it.
Here we go.
We won't dive into it too much. I'm still thinking about the idea of 5 gamers taking control. Like, we just got all of this Activision and Blizzard controversy news and the frat boy culture and sexual harassment nature. So I think, you know, that everything would be totally fine if Oasis went to the hands of 5 nerds. And nothing at all would go wrong.
Nothing problematic goes down.
No.
I haven't been following the Blizzard stuff. I've just seen it like tangentially on the timeline, but like just whenever people are shocked by this shit, like, oh my god, a gaming tech company has a bro culture. What? Like this is horrible. Like how could this be? How could this happen?
Be?
Yeah, like it's like
we are the children of the Xbox lobbies you refuse to close. Just happening. Oh man, it's just this movie frustrates me on so many levels. In our chat again, as we're leading up into this project, you echoed the last line of this movie of reality is the only thing that's real. Like isn't that great, guys? That the real world is the stuff that's important, you know. The real world, not the virtual world, which has a real world worth of trillions of dollars and generates billions of dollars per financial quarter. No. It's the real world.
Right.
It's your
only
shitty
place,
double wide
where you can get a decent meal.
I'm gonna go. I'm resubscribing to I'm 14 and this is deep.
I know we've been bouncing around a lot, but I am just eager to address TJ Miller's character.
It's amazing that we've just gotten around to TJ Miller.
Can we talk about him a little bit? And some of his lines.
Please.
Avatars are going to be on him like hose on Santa. Okay. Like
This is like peak Silicon Valley TJ Miller pre-controversy when they were like, you just riff and we'll animate your scary ass character saying
into a scary quote unquote bounty hunter. Like,
yeah.
What? What?
It's very scary in the like PG-13 science fiction high fantasy kind of thing, you know.
They also have him. Sorry to interrupt.
No, go for it.
Just the moment where he does the "It's a Wonderful Life" reference with "No man is a failure who has friends" at the end, and just trying to drive some, very just wowing content home to the audience. And
I was too distracted by the fact that when he got vaporized, just all of the gold and silver, like a mountain, came out from the loot drop. So I felt like that was a nice touch, good ending of the character. But yeah, I mean,
talk about algorithm written.
Yeah, it was just kind of like we need someone to be quippy. Who can we get right now? Who's in our Rolodex?
Yeah. Who's hot?
Yep.
Yeah. Who's popping in 2016?
And the answer, by the way, that it should have been, as it continues to be, is just cast Ryan Reynolds instead.
Sure.
Just
it's a free guy. It's a free guy.
He's a free guy.
Yeah. See, and for anyone wondering, why are we talking about Ready Player One when normally we're covering, Free Guy or whatever a new movie would be? Ready Player One is written by Earnest Cline, the guy who wrote the book, as well as Zach Penn, who wrote Free Guy.
Makes a lot of sense.
It shares a lot of the same DNA in it. And this just seemed like a fun movie for us to be covering right now. It just is a shame that it was this movie as the result, because it felt probably like the studio was saying, no, we have to be faithful to the book because the book was a phenomenon. And I hope the studios will take a lesson here. And if you are trying to make a franchise out of a single book that has a sequel coming soon, let the sequel book come out. See if the sequel book has legs, because it will show just how much the audience has aged on this particular property or not. And the fact that Ready Player One was this big, almost meme of a success, probably is the right word for it. It captured the zeitgeist for 6 to 8 months, and then it dropped off. And when it dropped off hard, because the sequel book wasn't well received. This movie, people like the special effects, I guess, but I don't know. I didn't have a good time with it.
I actually was enjoying this until maybe that's too strong of a word. I was entertained until the whole Planet Doom battle goes down, and that's when the just smorgasbord of pop cultural references just started to feel painful, and I had to pause this. I had to leave the room. I was getting angry. It all went downhill. I got scared and had to leave.
It's like a dog when fireworks are going off. Yeah, no, thank you.
It's a shame, because I think this has potential as a project. It had potential, but they just let the algorithm do too much.
Yeah,
the one scene, there's one thing that's been sticking in my mind after this rewatch of it, was that scene where Parzival was talking with the corporate villain, being trying to see whether he actually, had true respect for the pop culture references.
Oh my God, the bullshit test.
Right.
And the bullshit test. And then just the delivery of Parzival's line, I love John Hughes.
What the hell was that? What was that?
It was so overwrought, and I cracked up, but it's feeling more and more disturbing the more I think about it, because it's just applying this level of emotional resonance to your love for pop culture ephemera. It's insane. It's like, especially with the line delivery by the CGI character.
John Hughes didn't do Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Like I know my pop culture. I am a human.
Yeah. John Hughes had a cultural and artistic muse in Molly Ringwald, an underage girl. Yeah, nothing weird about that. I love John Hughes. I stand by everything and think it's a totally normal working relationship that could exist today. Just directly looking at the camera the entire time. I don't know, man. This movie, it seemed, I mean, the best way, at least, probably for me to explain it would be, it feels like it's a snake eating its own tail, because like it's a movie that's based on a book that's based on movies, comics, video games, and it just throws so many references is too strong a word. Like when you're talking about the Doom planet and all the references, they're not even really references. They're like split-second cameos. Like, oh, wow, Sonic is tapping his foot. Oh, no, that's Sonic. Yep, you see that for 2 seconds. You see Battletoads for half a second.
The bike from Akira. Like,
yeah, I mean, great, cool, I suppose. In typical fashion, it just seems to feel like it is skins thrown on top of overly generic things, and that's kind of how I feel about this movie. It's a very generic movie with the skin of nerdy pop culture thrown on top of it, and we're supposed to think like, oh, well, that's character development, or oh, this is a unique shot, and it's not. It all just kind of falls into that gray muddled pool and fails in my mind. And
it's also just like an insult to the original properties themselves, because seeing a CGI, the inside of the Overlook Hotel completely CGI with them basically recreating scenes from the movie. Like
how it becomes just a universal theme park ride, basically.
Yeah,
which I could be on board with. I'm not gonna lie.
I don't know.
To participate in.
Mamba, you're hurting me. It's fine. It's justified. But ow, there's pain in my soul.
Okay, let me just say. I mean, The Shining is one of my favorite movies, and I just like. If there's one thing I liked about this movie, I actually kind of enjoyed the CGI sequence, just because it felt like an amusement park ride, as you were saying.
Sure. Yeah.
Pure entertainment. Turn the brain off. Pure entertainment. You know.
Thank you, Martin Scorsese. I agree. The roller coaster ride, indeed.
I know we referenced it on the Space Jam 2 episode, but I got to bring it up again. That tweet you found, Kelton, about the person who was like, "Oh, I was on the fence about Space Jam 2 until there was a 15-second Rick and Morty reference." And for this one, it's like, "Oh yeah, I was on the fence about Ready Player One, but oh, dude, when it went to the Overlook Hotel." Inside, that's what sealed the deal for me.
It's just, again,
I enjoyed it as an entertainment experience, that clip, but I'm not saying it helped the movie at all.
And you know what? I'm glad you were able to enjoy it.
More so than can be said for me.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's something about where I don't hold it against anyone for going like, yeah, I enjoyed this movie or whatever. It just
not the movie, the scene.
Oh, the scene.
Got
it. Well, the movie as a whole, similar to what Space Jam is, it feels like this is the trajectory that you get once you show studios that you can make money by mashing IP together. That you get the Lego Movie, you get Ready Player One, you get Space Jam 2, you get Free Guy. Free Guy is probably going to do incredibly well because it seems like a smartly done concept of the same genetic material. Of, you know, you literally have someone who's an NPC going on a hero's journey, but it's with a vague GTA / Apex Legends Fortnite skin mashup. And the best part about it seems to be that you let Ryan Reynolds, who's a funny person, riff in a lot of funny ways, and you let Taika Waititi, who's a funny person, riff in a lot of ways, and you just kind of got out of the way and then gave them slick graphics to do that over. Like it's a good way to do it, but I think that it's going to lead to a lot of painful knockoffs as things continue on.
Well said.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think that this movie is one of those things that was a bellwether for this new genre of sorts. Just like we have superhero movies, just like we have dramas, just like we had westerns at the time. I think mashup IP is becoming its own genre of sorts. Of like, it's this thing that's just meant to show how many various connections to things you can build out, and that's the primary purpose of it.
And I mean, we were talking last time on the Suicide Squad show with Grimm about how the Marvel superhero DC movies are sort of like the new Westerns, as in they're the only big budget productions that are getting made. And then the overlap between this concept of like a cinematic IP universe and that dominant genre of blockbuster. It's the nexus of all I guess like the normie zeitgeist right now, for sure.
I can't wait. This means another 5 years of this kind of stuff. Because guess what? Ready Player 2, as a movie, not just as a book, it's in development, y'all.
It's happening, folks.
It's happening.
No. Oh yeah.
Come on.
No. Oh yeah.
Let's get Robert Zemeckis this time to direct this movie instead. Have Spielberg hand it off.
You're right.
Hold me, I'm afraid.
Normally for most things, this is where we would be talking about like, how many trash cans would you give something? But because this is a new season for us, it's something fun with a slightly adjusted format. I am excited to debut a much more streamlined version of Is This Garbage or Not? So it's pretty simple here. I'm gonna ask y'all first. Is this garbage? Grift, take it away.
This is absolutely garbage. You described it well as a snake eating its own tail. So I think we probably properly explained over the course of this episode why this piece of pop culture is a particularly noxious piece of garbage, and I'm going to be renaming it Ready Player Ouroboros.
That's the name of the Netflix series. I'm sorry, HBO Max series. My apologies. Yeah. I have to get the streaming companies correct. Yeah. Mamba, what about you?
This movie is a huge problem, and I am awarding it as much trash as possible. Garbage.
There we go. Yeah,
I would like my money back. I would like to be reimbursed for my time. I still am apologizing to my girlfriend for making her watch this with me.
Well, at least you still have one after forcing this to occur. You know,
Sweaty Mamba coming out as a male manipulator on his first podcast episode.
Okay, Griff. You got me there.
I definitely fall into the same camp. I don't think anyone's surprised. Certainly, I think that this is garbage. My apologies to anyone who tuned into this episode and was like, finally, someone who will give the plot recap of Ready Player One, because no, that it just wasn't in the cards. We hit on all the highlight scenes, so you're incredibly welcome for a much more enjoyable time than Ready Player One was entirely. But with all that being said, of course, it's time to get to plugs. So Grift, what is happening in the shop? I hear that the shop has switched locations now. It's you're now operating in the main cultural nexus. You've moved to where everything's occurring, Columbus, Ohio, right?
Yes, the fastest growing city in the world. No, I'm. This is being broadcasted from Manhattan right now. So from an undisclosed location, we'll leave it at that. But as far as what's going on in the shop, we still got the Fed Post pop-up collab. We're probably going to run that like another week or so. And then coming up in the works, we got there's some nebulous plans for some Labor Day like designs as well as there might be something special planned for the 20th anniversary of 9/11. You never know.
Oh, of course, of course. Well, I already look forward to the inevitable flagging of the Shopify merge.
Yeah.
So please, everyone, get it while it's hot. And,
free Grift shop.
I'm scared.
Yeah.
Gonna have to start investing in like a t-shirt printer ourselves to try and make this operation go.
I'm gonna sell all the censored designs as NFTs.
You should also sell the email where they give you that warning and let you know what happened. You know, it's the confirmation of receipt almost with it.
Yeah, it's the ticket number that they give you. That's that goes into the blockchain.
I love it. So, Mamba, what about yourself? What's happening?
Yeah, so you can certainly give me a follow on Twitter if you want at the Sweaty Mamba. Although I'm definitely producing more content on my Letterboxd, which you can find at just letterboxd.com/the Sweaty Mamba. This viewing inspired me to go through I'm currently working on going through the whole Spielberg filmography and doing some rewatches, watching the ones I haven't seen, making a little rankings list, and I'm sure you can guess where Ready Player One is on the list at the moment.
Number one with the bullet.
Number one, absolutely, absolutely.
I know, just regardless, whenever we get done with this, I am going to love getting your opinion on 1941 because
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
That's what I would encourage everyone to try watching instead, because it's a unique premise. Even it's like, oh, it's Spielberg doing an almost spoof comedy movie. Oh, weird. That doesn't seem like something he would do. It is, and it's actually pretty good. I
must say, you're the first person I've heard positively praise it. So. I respect your opinion. So,
well, I can be wrong, but just know that maybe it's the nostalgia myself. That's that's what's happening. My Oasis is just 1941.
It's 1941.
Themed, it's 1941. The soundtrack is some 41. It's just a real
there you go
fucked up.
Well, I will let you know when I get to it.
Hell yeah. As for the show itself, go ahead and follow us on Twitter and Letterboxd at Gigo Podcast, GIGO Podcast. If you want, feel free and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. That helps with the algorithm. We've existed so long, it probably doesn't mean anything one particular way or the other, but because my focus, once again, I'm coming to you once again as an audience and saying Spotify is the future. Spotify is the way, friends. We can trust this corporate entity and juggernaut to not fuck us over, for sure, 100% definitely. But we are closing in on 100 followers there, so if y'all wouldn't mind throw us a follow there, that's always fun. And until next time, just know that we love you, and let's all say goodbye, y'all.
Peace,
everyone. Thank you for having me.
You got it. Deuces.